Most of us recognize that we struggle with resistance. We see ourselves resisting change, resisting our goals, resisting life, and we don't know why. Or we think we know why, but we don't know how to stop. Today, I'm going to show you one simple thing that you can do to let go of resistance so your life can be easy and fun and harmonious. Check this out. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the one solution to removing all the negativity that's been pulling you down in life, so that you can lift yourself into just a naturally positive place where you have an inner conviction that you could have, do, and be whatever you choose, and the ability to carry that out, to demonstrate that positive influence in your life and in the world around you. And if you're new to the channel, I highly recommend subscribing and hitting that bell notification, because you're really going to like what we do here. We don't just talk about positivity. We don't just preach at you. That's what most people do. They just talk. Like today, we're going to be talking about resistance. But what do most people do when they talk about resistance? They say, oh, don't do it. Instead of resisting, just allow. Great. Thank you for telling me that. That's really helpful. How do I allow? That's the question, all right? See, we're going to show you step by step how to knock out resistance, how to be in the flow, how to allow things, how to really do it, and know that you're doing it correctly. Now, our subject today is resistance. And I think most of us, we recognize that resistance is something that we're doing that's having a negative impact on our life. Like we see ourselves resisting change. We resist taking actions to do something positive in our life, right? We sit around doing things that we know are bad for us, that are a waste of time, and we resist the fact that we're doing that. So we're just sitting around resisting this, resisting that, and we find ourselves stuck, getting nowhere, and wondering, why am I resisting all the time? The first thing to recognize is that the resistance is just a learned behavior. It's something that we learn to do our whole life. We're taught to resist. We're taught by our parents, by society, to resist bad influences, to resist evil people, to resist temptation, to just resist. Even to resist catching a cold. You have to build up a resistance, an immunity to things. So it's just been ingrained into our psyche. And therefore, we find ourselves becoming an expert at resisting. Now, the first thing is to recognize, well, we taught ourselves to do this. And then the second thing is to recognize, well, this thing that we've learned to do, how effective is it? If we're doing it, well, what are the results that we're getting by doing it? These things that we're resisting, are they going away? No. And I'll give you an example. Like, say, even if they appear to go away, it only appears to have gone away, but it's temporary. It always comes back. See, when I was growing up, one of the biggest existential threats that we were facing in life, that we were taught to resist, was communism and the threat of nuclear war. So, for decades, we were opposing it, we were resisting it, fighting it over here, over there. And then the 90s came along and communism just collapsed overnight. And there we were going, yay, we won. We don't have to worry about communism anymore. We don't have to worry about the threat of nuclear annihilation. Now we get to live in peace and prosperity. But here we are, not so long later, facing the exact same conversation again. Communist threats, nuclear war, didn't go away. So how do you make the resistance go away? Well, the first mistake that we tend to make, we got to watch out for, is we try to analyze the resistance. We try to play Dr. Phil with ourselves. You know, why am I doing it? And we might come up with a brilliant answer. Oh, I'm resisting because I've got this perfect persona. I got to have everything perfect. And when they aren't, that's when I resist. And that's why I'm doing it. Okay, great. That's a beautiful story. But what does that do to drop the resistance? And see, the more you get into these stories, the more complex you make it, and the more difficult you make it to let go of the resistance. Now, what I'm going to show you here is that this act of resisting, it is a very simple thing. It's a very simple thing to isolate in yourself and to pinpoint and drop. And then all the big, beautiful stories that go on top of that resistance just crumble away. So I'm going to show you just how to pull out the resistance by the roots. So you don't have to mess around with it. You don't have to mess around with all the whys and all the history and all the drama. Just pull the plug on it and drop it once and for all. Now, first of all, what is resistance? It's pushing away something that's undesirable, right? It's like a pushiness, like get that away from me. Whether it's something big like an existential crisis, like resisting oppression, resisting fascism, something that you just don't want to have happen. Like, get that away from me. Keep that out of here. And it's the exact same resistance that shows up with something that's just a minor annoyance, like being stuck in cold weather, right? It's too cold. You're shivering, you're resisting the cold. Or resisting a noisy neighbor. Oh my God, there they go again. Why won't they stop? And in all of these situations, what are you feeling inside? Like an inner pushiness, right? It's like a pushy feeling that's inside, like, ugh, I want this out of here, make it go away. And that pushiness, what you're really doing is you're pushing away something, and you're pushing away the world in a way that it seems to push right back at you. So you take something that's like a big crisis, like oppression, censorship, authoritarianism. I got to stand up and resist it. So you fight against it, but guess what? It fights back. You got a fight on your hand. And you struggle with it. And here's one thing to recognize is while you're trying to push it away, just imagine like you're physically trying to push something away that's pushing against you, right? It's pushing on you, you're pushing back, but look at what's happening. You're actually holding on to it, which is why they have that expression, whatever you resist persists, doesn't it? Right? It doesn't go away. Maybe because in the act of pushing against it, you're actually holding on to it. Now, the other thing, which is another expression that you probably have heard, is how you do anything is how you do everything. You see, this is where you see that the resistance trips you up. And you don't know why, you don't know how to stop. But once you recognize that when you push away bad things, to that same degree, you push away the the good things. You got that push inside of you, like, get that away from me. That mind, it doesn't discriminate between good and bad, right? How you do anything, you're pushing away this thing, it's how you do everything. You're pushing away everything. So while you may feel justified in pushing away something that you don't want, that is why you find yourself pushing away things that you do want. Why you see yourself procrastinating on your goals, not taking action, or just flat out resisting making a positive change in your life. It's not complicated. That's exactly why. Now, like I said, the resistance, it's a feeling, right? It's a pushy feeling. So how do we get rid of the resistance? Well, just notice something that you're resisting in life. You got something that you're resisting? Right? Maybe you're resisting doing something that you have to do that you don't want to do. Maybe you're resisting a situation that keeps reoccurring in your life. You're like, oh, that's happening again. Make that go away. Or you might find yourself resisting doing something that you know would be positive. So just think about something that you're resisting. And take a moment and measure that resistance on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being the most resistant, 0 being the least resistant. Just put a number to it. Just see where you're at. You could be at like a 3, just minorly resisting it. Maybe right now in this moment, when it's like in your face, that could be a higher number. Or you might recognize, oh, I'm like beyond a 10. I'm really resisting it. But just put a number to it. Just measure yourself. How much are you resisting that thing that you're resisting? Now check this out. That resistance that you have towards a thing, can't you see that you don't like that resistance? You don't like being in a state of resisting, right? It's not fun. It's a pushy feeling, right? You don't like having this pushy feeling come up. Sure, you're pushing it away, but you're the one who has to walk around with this pushy feeling. That's not a good thing. So just notice, when you see yourself resisting, or when that resistance comes up, whether it's at a 3, a 10, or a 28, you say no to that resistance, don't you? Like, no resistance. I don't want you here. Go away. But when you say no to that resistance, does it make the resistance go away? No. In fact, it gets worse, doesn't it? So saying no to that resistance, it doesn't work. That's not a solution. Now I could show you how to completely remove this resistance that's coming up inside of you. But you got to be willing to do something radically different than say no to it. Would you be willing to do that? I'm guessing your answer is yes. Now, what's the radical difference from saying no to something? Saying yes. That's the polar opposite. And if saying no isn't making the resistance go away, but in fact building it up, then let's do the opposite. Let's do the radical difference. Now take a look at that resistance right now. Get in touch with it. You know it's in you. You know it just comes up the moment that it's triggered. And it didn't come out of nowhere. It's been sitting inside of you, ready to jump out once that trigger happens. So bring up that resistance. Get in touch with it. Now just look at that resistance and never mind the story. You see, the story, it's a waste of time. We're going right to the root of the whole thing. The resistance. Just look at that resistance. Now, instead of saying no to that resistance, just look at it and say yes to it. That's it. Just yes. Try it out. And could you say yes to that resistance a little bit more? And say yes to it a little bit more. And say yes to it a little bit more. And say yes to it even more. And say yes to that resistance. Just yes. Say yes to it a little bit more. And a little bit more. And even more. And say yes to that resistance even more. And even more. And say yes to it even more. Now measure yourself again and see if that number moved. See if it dropped. Maybe it dropped just a couple of points. Or maybe it dropped like all the way down to 0 or almost there. But just see where you're at. See if that number moved. And see if you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. Notice the difference? Now, notice that resistance is like a feeling inside of you that you were saying no to, basically pushing down. Like, oh, resistance? I don't want you here. You bother me. You get in the way. You make things difficult. Ugh. And we try to keep it at bay so that we can keep it managed and we can kind of, make it through life as best as we can. All right, so we hold it down. We try to keep it so it's not up and, causing havoc. But pushing it down, again, when we push on it, we're holding on to it. And so it remains. Now, you let go of some of the resistance. You saw that number dropped, and you feel a little bit lighter. So you let some of it go. You got some momentum now. And you might feel inside of you that feeling of resistance. You might feel it in your gut here, all right? Like a clenching, contracted feeling, just right inside of you, right here in your stomach or chest. And wherever you're feeling that, open up an imaginary window or door right in front of that contraction, right in front of that tightness. And what that tightness is, it's nothing physical. It's not something that you can remove by surgery, put in a bag. It's just energy, right? So just see it as energy and imagine this energy now going right on out the door. Just imagine that energy leaving now. And let go pushing down on that energy. Let it come up. And just let it pass through, right on out that door. Welcome up that resistance a little bit more. And a little bit more. And more. And even more. And welcome it up even more. And even more. And even more. And even more. And just let that energy pass through. You don't need to know anything about it, where it came from, who gave it to you, how long it's been there. It doesn't matter. It's like if you got a splinter. You don't care what color it is, how it got there. You just take a pair of tweezers and you pull it out. So just open up that door, let that energy out. That's all you need to do. And welcome it up some more now. And let that energy pass through. And even more. How does that feel? Do you feel lighter? Happier? And even more clear in your thinking? Right? You're not just kind of boxed in by thoughts of, oh, well, I'm limited here, I'm limited there. I don't know what to do about it. But now, your mind is, quieter. And what comes to you is just like positivity. Oh, things aren't so bad. Or I could just take this action, it's not so difficult. And take a look at that thing that you're resisting. And if it was a negative thing, like something that was bothering you, see if you're as bothered now. Right? Like, it's not pushing you around anymore. See, you're pushing on it so that it was pushing back at you. And now you don't feel like you've been pushed around, right? You feel more steady. You feel more in control. And if what you're resisting was something positive, maybe as a goal of yours, you might find yourself not resisting it so much. And like feeling that it's a little bit easier now to take action, to move towards that goal. You notice that? And this shows you that, trying to resolve it up here, trying to resolve it through your mind, trying to figure out a solution, getting into that big, beautiful story, it's a waste of time. You go right to the root, your own internal feeling. And the fact that you were doing that pushing, that you have always been in control. And by taking responsibility, if you're in control and you're pushing, I can stop pushing. And that makes all the difference. Not only does that energy leave, that, tight, grippy feeling inside, right? It opens up, it unwinds, but then your thinking, it just naturally gravitates towards positivity. You have to program yourself or, use affirmations, any of that nonsense. Just pull the plug on the resistance and you see yourself moving right towards what you really want, effortlessly. And that's what all these people have been talking about, but they don't show you how to do it. It's a waste of time to try to be in the flow, to try to allow while you are simultaneously resisting. All this positive thinking, it doesn't get you anywhere when you are the one who's creating the negativity in the first place. All you have to do is stop the negativity. Stop doing what it is that you're doing, and then the positivity just shows up. Then the idea of being in the flow, it just comes naturally to you. You know what it is because you are it. That's it. Now, going back to what I pointed out originally, right at the beginning of this video, this resistance, it's a learned skill. It's a bad skill, but it's a skill that you learned and that you perfected. And if you pay close attention, you're going to see yourself resisting stuff all the time, like literally all day long. Resisting that, resisting this other thing, right? Resisting the temperature. Oh, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too noisy. Oh, that person, Oh, I don't like them. They want to come over and talk to me. You're resisting them. Just pay attention, reflect on how much you're resisting all day long. And recognize how you do anything is how you do everything. If you got good at resisting, then that's why you're always going to be resisting your goals. You're always going to be resisting the freedom that you're craving in your life. And in fact, you're going to keep yourself down. You're going to keep yourself a slave to all the problems and all the limitations that you've been fighting over, that you've been resisting in your life. It will not go away until you take responsibility. Recognize that habit of yours and turn the whole thing around. Taking responsibility is key. You got to take responsibility for what it is that you're doing. The fact that you're resisting 1,001 times every single day. Little things here and there, and big things. And deciding, well, what am I going to do about that? Am I still going to keep trying to push these things away and getting nowhere? Or am I going to recognize that that pushing isn't solving anything? And it's me that's doing the pushing. And if I'm doing the pushing, I can very easily turn that around and just say yes to all of that. To say yes to my own feelings inside. Bring them up so that they can leave. And I can get to that state that you just proved to yourself, right? You felt that lighter feeling. That's proof. That's proof that you can let it go. So, if I can let these feelings go, then why not see every single instance where I'm resisting, not let that get further than my nose, turn that whole thing around, let all that resistance go. And just imagine how easy your life would be if you had no resistance. Just imagine that for a moment. If you had no resistance, do you think you'd experience the world pushing on you? If you had no resistance, do you think that you'd be weighed down with problems? And who's doing it? Responsibility is key. Now, if you want to take responsibility, I can help you. Seriously. I've got a 6-week course we're starting this week called the Conscious Creation Master Course. It's about using your goals to focus yourself in a way that will bring up the resistance that you have towards these goals. Because what we've been examining is that it's only the resistance that's stopping you. So what we're going to do is we're going to set big goals, even little goals, but goals that will get you to see where that resistance is. And I'm going to help you remove that resistance completely. It really is the simplest thing. When you do it, you're just going to laugh your head off. Like, how was I so silly to make it out to be such a big issue? Gee, it was so simple. And that's exactly what you're going to experience there. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link to it up here, also in the comments below, in the description below, to the Conscious Creation Master Course. Check it out and join us. And even if you're watching this video late and we already started, you can still jump in. All the stuff that we're doing, it's archived, it'll be there for you. You have your own personal library in the members area, so you can just jump in and get started. And just see how quickly your life can turn around. And just see how easy your life can be. Just by taking a little responsibility. All right? So check it out. Keep practicing it. Keep proving it to yourself. We'll see you on the next video.